Almost out for summer, it's the time of year where parents and students are thinking about what's next and how to pay for it. Today on Your Game Plan for Retirement, we will talk with Chris McIntire, president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services, about college planning, some of the tools, some of the strategies, some of the available options for how to help your student afford and pay for college in the most effective method and manner possible. Chris McIntire is president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services, Northwestern Ohio's resource for that common sense approach to planning. And Chris, we always appreciate your time. Maybe we're not thinking about it just yet if we're students. We're sort of just looking forward to that last day of school, right? But we do need to try to think about what's next.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are of a certain age here are thinking of an Alice Cooper song, when you say school's out. And
Indeed.
Yep, for sure. And, the students are wanting to not think about anything but relaxing and having fun. And the parents and grandparents are like, all right, the next step is college for a lot of these youngsters. And how do we go about paying for that? And, they think student loans have certainly been on the forefront of the headlines and whatnot. And, not everybody's going to take student loans. They're going to ask for help from parents and grandparents. So I think we'll talk a little bit about that on today's show, buddy.
And if you've got questions, ladies and gentlemen, just one of the myriad of topics that Chris McIntire can help walk you through, assist you in your decision making with, or at least provide education so that you can make better, more informed decisions. And Chris does help with the financial, the investment, the retirement planning. In fact, he is the home of the Game Plan for Retirement, the written financial plan for how to bring together income, investments, taxes, healthcare, legacy, and all of the goals that you have in your life and financially into a written plan for retirement. He offers to help you put that together, no cost, no obligation, in the financial review and retirement planning strategy session. If you'd like to take advantage, or if you just got some questions on your mind, pick up the phone and give a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, you mentioned the student loans. I mean, they have been in the news to a great extent. And that is one way that college can be funded. Certainly not the optimal way, I don't think anyone would say, but they do give out loans for college. And just to put this in perspective, because our normal conversations are about retirement planning, they don't so much give out the same kind of loans for retirement. So to sort of preface this conversation, put on the scale, maybe we need as parents or grandparents to prioritize our own financial security and stability rather than negating that to do for children or grandchildren.
Peter, I just had a conversation here this past week with some folks that came to one of our classes that we host here at Terra or BGSU Firelands, and the grandparents said, I've got a grandson that has a lot of student loan debt and he's behind on it and whatnot, and apparently isn't real good with money. And he said, should I just pay those off for him? And I said, no, you shouldn't. I said, because you're just enabling bad behavior then. There's no repercussions. And I said, that person's young. They've got time to overcome, but they got to learn from their mistakes. If you're going to pay for their mistakes, you're not going to fix it. And, and I think a lot of us here, are thinking of, the forgiveness of student loans. That's we're not going to get into that on today's show because obviously there's some political elements and all that. And are they buying votes with that strategy or something? And that certainly warrants a worthy conversation. That's not what we're here to talk about today, thankfully, is how do parents and grandparents help their children maybe avoid some of those student loans, And I mean, we're not here to say, for some people who are out there wanting to go to college, getting loans is the only way that they can afford it. And, so that's certainly an avenue, and they have to fill out the financial aid forms that are FAFSA, as they call that, where they have to disclose some of their income and assets and things like that. And do they qualify or don't they qualify? And, I've been reading in the headlines before we agreed to have this topic on the show in the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg on, some of the, I'm going to say they've tried to make improvements to the financial aid student loan and whatnot that have not worked out very well. So, when the government says we're going to come in here and fix it, it sometimes can take a little bit of time. And we'll say that tongue in cheek,
Yeah,
that,
we're here to help, right? And
yeah, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
are,
So 9 words to be scary of.
are we doing more harm than good there? But I liken it, Chris. I mean, even the very famous financial guru Dave Ramsey talks about the order of operations and how any mature, responsible adult should make the financial progress with kids in the picture. He even puts that step, helping the kids for college, preparing them at all, behind making sure that we are saving 15% of our total gross household income to retirement. And he says, don't even do the kids' college unless you are doing 15% for your own retirement. I liken it to flying on an airplane when the flight attendants step to the front of the plane before takeoff and say, if you're traveling with children and there's turbulence in the air and masks drop from the ceiling, make sure to secure your own mask first, right? It's not because we don't care about the kids. It's because if we are not putting ourselves in the most stable financial situation or any situation, if we are not stabilizing ourselves to the best of our ability, we are not serving to stabilize those around us. In fact, we may become dependent on them at the wrong time later in life if we have not prepared ourselves for retirement before helping kids with college planning.
Yeah, and that's a great analogy, Peter. And the advice I had given the gentleman the other day was, said, tell your grandchild that if they save $10,000 and you can see it in their bank account for 6 months, you'll pay $10,000 of their student loan interest. If they make it up to $20,000, you'll pay another $10,000. I'm like, that's a win-win situation. You have incentivized them to make good decisions. And the other side to that conversation is, okay, when grandpa's got to go into a nursing home, okay, is the grandson going to say, well, grandpa, you gave me $50,000. I'm going to give it back to you to pay for your care in a nursing home? That's probably not going to happen. And so, that was what I had mentioned to the clients. I'm like, look, you guys need to prepare for your own retirement and things that can happen to you instead of bailing other people out here with no skin in the game whatsoever. That is not a good plan, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, Chris, my own son is 14, about to go into high school, so we are kind of beginning the process of looking at college planning, and there are some things that have already come about: registration in certain avenues, and what kind of testing is required, what kind of classwork, GPAs are they looking for. The minimum requirements to graduate high school are not the same as what college admissions are looking for, right? And they want some activities even outside of just the classwork. So there's a myriad of things to consider for anyone looking to help. But the college loans, again, that's borrowing money if we have not planned and prepared. And what we really want to talk about, Chris, is being more proactive and trying to plan and prepare as best as possible financially for the expense of college. And now, in saying that, Chris, I think the perspective of the necessity and the expense and the duration and the type of college is also changing very quickly, kind of ebbing and flowing with the perspectives that we have of the world today versus maybe 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. And, a lot of grandparents have been, putting money for grandkids into those 529 plans, so, we should address that, all right, well, I've been helping my grandson, granddaughter, and they've got X number of dollars in their 529 plan. And, the government has expanded what they can use those 529 funds for anymore. Some private schools, trade schools, things along those lines, because we all talk about college and we're all thinking 4-year degrees. It's like, look, you can go to school for welding and make one heck of a living as well, too. I mean, there are some skilled trades out there that we certainly don't want to discount. And, that was a path that I had taken in my younger years, and it worked out just fine for me. Did a career change, obviously, but, learned a lot about problem solving, critical thinking, and, you mentioned the order of operations, troubleshooting, we would call that. And, You know, so let's not discount trade schools and things like that, guys, by any stretch. I'm a major endorser of those types of schools, because not everybody, is cut out, has the personality to take a desk job, for example. Some people want to be outside and build things and whatnot, and that's certainly worthy of discussing here today too, Peter.
Yeah, well, indeed. And Chris, they have loosened those definitions. I know that there are certain advantages, right, for using those types of accounts that are specifically earmarked for educational expenses, but they also used to be rather limiting on what qualified for those educational expenses that we could use those dollars and therefore get that advantage for, specifically speaking about those 529 accounts. It was basically tuition and books at one point in time, but nowadays, room and board, even off-campus housing expenses, that can be used. If you get scholarships, you can, I believe, take out matching dollar per dollar from the 529 for whatever scholarships are awarded to the student. So these are things that I'm finding out, even Chris, as we are moving along. But it has loosened the definition of what those educational expenses are. And therefore, I believe just that alone, and we'll talk about one other important factor, but just that loosening of the definition alone, I think has made those accounts more attractive. And do you want to speak to that, as well as what the tax benefits of those accounts are?
Yeah, for sure, Peter. And so let's say somebody is, had, $50,000 in their 529 plan, funded by parents and grandparents, and they only used $35,000 of that to go through college, and they've got $15,000 left over. Okay. If that account has been established for 15 years and junior isn't going to use it for college anymore, they can roll that into a Roth IRA, which grows tax deferred, and then be prepared for income tax-free withdrawals in the retirement. And it's also something they can fund during their working years. So, that's one of the nice benefits they've added to those 529 plans. And, it's just my opinion. I believe that there's a lot of them out there that are, I guess I'm going to call them dormant, that they said, look, let's make a pathway for these things to exit the 529 space and maybe, go into the retirement space. So, and you can do that with up to $35,000 in your 529 plan, is move that into a Roth IRA for, like your grandchild, for example, or your children in Peter's case. And, something that they have established and can fund, for the rest of their working years, even.
And
Wonderful.
it really is that change alone, Chris, I think made a big difference. We have an only child, and so we were always a little hesitant about, well, yes, we want to use the 529, but maybe not overutilize it, because what if, right? He
Yep.
doesn't need it, and we end up losing those tax advantages down the road. But the ability now to take that 529 account and essentially maintain the same exact benefit, right? It's just we retarget it for a different purpose. So, Chris, at its core, the 529 we put in after tax dollars, and there's very, very high limits and limitations on how much we can put in. Almost nobody, I think, is going to run into the problem of the limits and limitations. You can kind of put in what you want to, but once those dollars go in, before they go in, you have to pay the taxes. Once they go in, all the growth from that point forward, if you use it for the right kind of expenses, is 100% tax free. And again, educational expenses, right? Those are the right kind. But now with this change, if we do have some left over, essentially the same benefit, that all of the growth is going to be tax free. It's just now the child has the flexibility of changing those dollars from college or educational dollars to retirement dollars. Or Chris, if we do have multiple children or family members, it can also be transferred between family members. That's another flexibility benefit, I think, of these accounts.
Yeah, and as critical as, we are on the show here, certain government decisions, they really did a nice job here of allowing some, funds to move back and forth with one another, and maintain tax deferred, tax-free status as well. So we will give them kudos to that 529 flexibility, let's call it. So
Yep.
yeah, great avenue to have there. And I think we'll probably see more and more people using that 529 space, because of the flexibility and what they can do with it down the road as well. And it doesn't have to be like the typical 4-year university, which is fantastic.
Well, Chris, I know that gifting is also often a strategy for maybe more particularly grandparents that want to help kids or grandkids or family members with educational expenses. Sometimes the college costs more than the grandparent can gift in a single year. So sometimes a lifetime gift exemption is mixed in there. But the strategy, bottom line, either a one-time single year allowance or a lifetime exemption allowance. The strategy of gifting is often used to help cover those college expenses as well. And there are a couple other tools that are commonly in the conversation for college expense planning. Do you want to talk about any of those?
Yeah, and that gift exemption. So, a lot of people are, thinking, well, how much money can I give away every year without dealing with special tax rules and whatnot? Okay. So this year it's $18,000. So you could gift your grandchild $18,000 and put it into a 529 plan basically for them. Okay. And remember that Roth conversion ability of old 529 plans is limited to $35,000. So, somebody out there is probably didn't hear us the right way on that and is thinking, oh my God, I can give my grandkids a lot of money. They can just move it into a Roth IRA 15 years from here. It's only a $35,000 balance that's in there.
Yeah.
And Peter, some grandparents say, well, I don't want to deal with the 529 and all those things, the rules and regulations that are in there. They can give money and just put it in a Universal Transfer to Minors Act or an UTMA account. And then that just becomes the grandchild's or child's account when they reach usually the age of 21 is the most common one. And then they can use it for whatever they want and they can deal with the capital gains taxes and so on down the road. So, 529s have kind of that educational purpose. And then the UTMA accounts are, look, I want to help them save and put money into a down payment on a house or something. Then, there are some other avenues that you can utilize there. So you're in control of it until they hit basically the age of 21.
And a myriad of different options here and complexities with each one of these options that you need to fully understand, ladies and gentlemen. So be sure that you get the help and the assistance before putting this at all into play or practice. Make sure that you are informed and educated in dealing with an experienced, qualified professional. And that's exactly what Chris McIntire is here for. If you would like to have conversations, pick up the phone, give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Now, Chris, I want to talk about one more tool or strategy that is discussed and quite frankly debated. I think that there are some pros, cons, there's some validity, and then there's some questionable gray area here. But cash value in life insurance is also talked about very often when it comes to college funding. And in fact, I think that there is a utilization there. It can be said to be a tool, but there are also some kind of questionable strategies to utilize life insurance to then qualify for financial aid that it seems like the government is beginning to see their way through.
Yeah, and the uniqueness of cash value life insurance, and I have two of those policies, so I can speak to this, is the unique tax structure of that. And if you're filing for financial aid, you do not have to include the cash value of your life insurance proceeds on that financial aid form. So that can certainly be for help you to qualify for financial aid. That can be a big issue there because it's and we have companies that say, look, here's how you can use our life insurance policies to fund college education for grandkids and whatnot down the road. And so this is not something that's new that's out there, Peter. This has been around forever and ever. And the uniqueness of the tax benefits of the cash value inside life insurance policy apply much more to student loan funding as for me, tax-free retirement income in my retirement. So, it's a very broad base, but, if we got grandparents out there and they want to start funding some money into a life insurance policy for a grandchild that they can eventually borrow against to pay their tuition, income tax free, and it still may qualify them to get some financial aid as well. So a really unique tool out there that, life insurance isn't just about dying. Otherwise, they'd call it death insurance.
Yeah. Yeah, well, but Chris, this is not something to do like the day before you submit that financial aid application, right? I mean, it's kind of like qualifying for Medicaid later on in life if we need that. There sort of is method to protect or shelter certain assets for a spouse or family, but generally the government is going to see through any attempt to kind of shuffle or hide assets within a 5-year period. They can even claw them back, and if you try to gift or give away or reorder assets, they're going to do a pretty deep dive forensic accounting. Sort of same true holding here for the conversation about the college financial aid, is that this is not something that the day before you're going to be able to just like shuffle all the assets over to the side in cash value or anything else. And that has been sort of a tactic or conversation or sales strategy that maybe people should be aware and wary of in certain instances.
Yeah, no question about it. There's the more due diligence you do, the more pre-planning you do, the earlier you start that pre-planning, it just makes the process so much easier and hassle-free, for example, is trying to do it here at the last minute, and we've all got family members or loved ones that are great procrastinators, and then all of a sudden it's the system that's failing them for them failing the system, right?
Yep. Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, it is complex, many different choices and options, and these are important decisions for your family, for your children, for your grandchildren, and the financial cost and burden of college should be viewed as an investment, with the hope of a return at the end of the college experience through a better, higher paying, more comfortable kind of quality of life and income in the job prospects. Right, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. As we look at, the higher the education, the higher the income throughout somebody's lifetime, there's really no comparison to, having a good quality education versus, coming out there and hoping you land something without much educational background. Just those pieces of paper certainly mean a lot economically over the course of someone's life. And, for some people, they have to learn the hard way, kids and grandkids, no question about it. And they have to pick up the pieces a little bit later in life. And, maybe they take one class at a time for a longer period of time as they're working their way through there. And, as an employer, I want to see the effort somebody had made. I'd rather see somebody that might have taken a little bit longer, but they worked their way through college, than somebody whose parents or grandparents stroked it and gave them easy street. I mean, that person hasn't had any hard luck. You want somebody that, knows how to survive. That's what I would look for.
Or some real world experience, drive, and motivation, right? You've got to know yourself. You got to know your student, your child, your grandchild, and make sure to have conversations about the college experience being an investment. And again, all the tools to help you fund that and to cash flow or work your way through the expenses of that. Chris McIntire can have that as part of the conversation about your financial well-being, your investment planning, your retirement planning. It is all part of the game plan for retirement. If you would like to have that conversation, get that plan put together, pick up the phone, give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Speaking of college as an investment, Chris, going off on a little bit of a tangent here, I am hearing a lot of commercials about advertising pretty high stated rates of return. talking about people investing in student loan debt, right? There's certain companies out there that are basically buying up student loans out there that have defaulted or have had non-payments. They're buying them up, they're consolidating them with the investment of individuals, and then promising those individuals a return on the investment. I've got so many questions about that. Number one, if those who held the student loans originally weren't paying on them before, what guarantees do we have that they're going to pick them up and pay them into the future? And then B, what happens with that investment when that bucket of student loans gets wiped or forgiven? Where do the investors that I'm hearing are putting money into these things get their money back, Chris? Is this something that you've heard of or have any thoughts on?
Yeah, I've done a little light reading on it, Peter. I'm not because I wouldn't recommend it for our clients by any stretch. So if you think about the housing crisis in 2008, investors got hurt there because they take mortgages, package them together, and cut them up into different pieces and sell them to investors, right? They call them tranches. And so they're doing the same thing with student loan debt. They're buying that debt, and then a collection agency is chasing after the people to get the money back. And sometimes it's pennies on the dollar, but it's still better than nothing. So they're carving those pieces up, selling them off. Investors buy them and get some sort of rate of return, and they call it diversification because there's thousands of borrowers in there, not just one, for example. And I don't know what happens when they all of a sudden wipe out that student loan debt, who gets paid off, because a debt is an IOU. So who's writing the check to the underwriter of those loans? Is the Biden administration doing that? I'm not sure how all of that works. I don't even know that they know how it works, to be honest with you. It's just a very hot topic at election time right now. They are buying votes. Let's be clear.
Yeah. Well, bottom line, college is important. The decisions around college, and particularly college expenses and financing, can be very important. In fact, life-altering financial implications, both of the path you choose and the education that you receive and the financial decisions that you make when you're in college. Having conversations with your kids and grandkids about the responsibility of that financial aspect of college life, vitally important. And then figuring out how to actually pay for and afford the college education experience itself, also very important. And as always, Chris McIntire here, ladies and gentlemen, as a resource for all financial decisions and considerations, choices that you have to make. So if you would like to talk it through, become more informed and educated on all of the options available, pick up the phone and give McIntire Retirement Services a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194, or visit online, McIntireRetirementServices.com, McIntireRetirementServices.com. Chris, we always appreciate the time here on the program. You are always a valuable resource for us and the proactive savers and investors and planners across Northwestern Ohio. Thank you for being here.
Hey, my pleasure. And with since we talked all about college today, OH.
Well, we appreciate the time on the program, Chris. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Take care, guys.
Tune into Chris McIntire's full radio program and visit McIntireRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.